Miss Leslie.
Leslie's right there.
There, I can't start unless Leslie's here, but she can watch it. Okay. All right, Monteagle Regional Planning Commission is going to be called to order. I'm going to do roll call for who is here. Richard Black.
Here.
Janet Miller-Schmidt.
Here.
Ed Provo. John Bragg. Durain Permley is gone. Peter Beasley.
Here.
And Marilyn Rodman.
Here.
And I'm Michelle Russell. I am here. All right. In our packet is the previous meeting minutes. Y'all haven't had time to review it. Are there any corrections?
I didn't see any.
Okay. If so, then I need a motion to approve.
Second.
Peter moved, and we've got Richard as the second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Staff and community reports. Earl.
Hello.
Hey.
Earl's back.
I really don't have anything to report. As I always say, if anybody's got questions, I'll do my best to answer.
Okay. Any questions for Earl that you can think of? Just that that's a pretty blue. It does go with the size. All right. Anya.
No new minor subdivisions.
Perfect, easy enough. All right, we're going to move to old business, joint IDA IES model lighting ordinance. Anya.
Like I said, I think Nate and I are going to be in discussions when he gets back into town about putting together a approved lighting list, and it could be added as a new site plan requirement for commercial developments, and we'll probably have a workshop for this once I get more research done.
Gotcha.
Good.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Anya. Discussion on permitting apartments in C2.
So initially my recommendation was rather than permitting apartments or doing them as special exceptions, allowing just mixed-use residential, but there didn't seem to be that didn't seem to appeal to the board. So, I mean, if you don't want a spot zone, then you would permit it as a, permitted use on review, apartments in C2, and then you'd have the opportunity to allow surrounding property owners to come and make their case for whether they want that to be adjacent to their property or not, or have the town come say their complaints or approval. So I don't know how you feel about that.
So that would be a BZA decision then?
Yeah, it would go before the BZA, right? Right?
And our process would be passing the special use provision, or recommending it to City Council.
Yes.
All right, any discussion?
We're amending the ordinance, is that correct?
Yes.
Is that not what we discussed and we let that fall?
You would have to amend the ordinance.
Yeah, so,
Add that to it.
So if you have to amend the ordinance, then apartments could be anywhere in C2.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
We allow.
If it's,
But it would have to come in front of,
The BZA
yeah.
as a
Would he
special
come in front,
exception
would he come in front of the planning commission
No.
to go to BZA?
to a different board, yeah.
So the BZA would have the burden of discriminating on who could do it, who couldn't?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
or determining.
I just don't think that's a good way to
Yeah.
do business.
Get off the ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any other discussion about that? I mean, we'll take a roll call on that. Any other discussion? Yeah.
We got a motion?
No, we don't have a motion yet. We're still in discussion.
I mean, I'm not against the apartments. I've been on record on this specific property. I've been on record each time we've talked about it for this specific property that I thought apartments were a good fit.
I agree with you, Richard, on that.
Peter, what do you think?
I agree. I think it's right.
Okay. Marilyn, what do you think?
No, I think
But
it's
I
right.
just can't believe there's not a better way to get it
The right way to.
done without having to put apartments in everything that's in it.
C2, yeah,
But you don't have to put in everything, it's based upon
No, yeah, you can,
used by review.
Yeah.
by review.
But that puts the BZA in a particularly,
They become the bad guy.
That's okay, they can do it.
Well,
Ed, what do you think? I don't bother me.
That doesn't
So I get paid the big bucks,
No,
right?
That's right.
Hey, everybody
so-
comes in here and wants apartments on their property, they're a fool, and that's gonna be just fine, and, you know, financially.
Let them
they'll
do it,
find out.
right, yeah, exactly. Anybody from the audience has a viewpoint on apartments in C2 district? Anybody have comments? We looked at the percentage. There was no way we could do it that way, but we looked into it, thank you.
it would be hard to enforce, but I did.
It was enforcement issue, but we looked. Anybody else? Go ahead, Greg.
Could you limit it to number of units or number of units versus the coverage of the land, or some kind of guideline?
I think apartments have a
I think
guideline.
We're going to review it on a case-by-case basis, aren't we? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
They already
That's
have.
one
their
suggestion.
Planning,
Yeah.
it already has that through site plan, so that's part of your site plan in there, Earl,
Yeah,
so
the
that.
site plan, I understand.
Yeah,
It
but
sounded
they-
like a touch of discrimination or trying to figure it out, so I'm just saying,
But we're
maybe
not.
to help BZA, that you have certain requirements or guidelines. I'm
Well,
just asking, I don't.
Yeah,
I'm not
the-
setting policy.
Yeah, the planning, the zoning is what it is, right? So if it's an apartment, it has X, Y, Z that it has to go through with the site plan. But I think it comes down to, on a C2, how do we not be arbitrary? Like, Greg, I think your plan sounds great. And Earl, I really hate your plan. It's the same, maybe it's the same plan with some, twisty doodads on it, and I'm like, oh, that's, and we vote on Earl's because we like him better.
Well,
You know
you
what I'm
have
saying?
to,
I mean,
yeah, you'd have to, in the minutes, it would have to be really specific why a plan was denied.
Yeah, so you just couldn't haphazardly do it, unless you're creating a liability on the town, and then you would be sued. So, I mean, that's the reason you protect yourself, and make sure you do it right.
and I think the neighbors are important too. I think, the neighbor input, I know Dean brought in Cliff Tops, and they're, they're for it. So, I
They
mean,
are
that's,
for what?
they were for the apartment buildings.
Which is the biggest landowner
Yes,
close to this piece of property.
Yes.
The impact.
yes. So, I mean, that's an important component.
And the next property owner would be Pizza.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
well, there's that spot that's been, the fire that knocked down the building and then the pizza.
Hey, the Pizza Hut would really rake in. Think about it, apartments,
Yeah,
pizza,
walk down
right?
there to it.
Walk to it. All right,
If I may, just to follow on,
yes, sir.
so you can set guidelines that you could do apartments in C2 if the lot size was 2 acres.
It's
as an
already done.
example.
Earl, can you explain to him how that works, the lot size has to fit in a
I'm
certain
just trying
size
to get away
building?
from the controversy, and I don't know why, if somebody had 20 acres, that would be one scenario in C2 to do apartments. If somebody had 2 acres, would that be another scenario to do apartments?
You could do
in
that,
C2?
the same as we do agricultural use, can't
No,
be
I'm
on,
sorry.
you can do that, the same way as we only allow agricultural use in parcels in C2 that exceed
Thank you.
50 acres, so. That is a limitation we could put on it,
But it would have to be written into the ordinance that way.
yes,
You'd have to amend the ordinance we currently have.
yes,
Right.
right.
Which we're doing right
So-
now.
So we would have to write the ordinance around this piece of property to make sure it fits.
Yeah, that's what
That's
you
not a
said, that
problem.
is discrimination, so you're
Yeah,
actually
that's
discriminating
fine.
at that point in time. So Earl, I know you're the one that made the recommendation, we do this back in October. So what was your thought process and why?
Well, the site, your original site plan that you have these people review determines how many parking spaces you gotta have. Landscape shows how many curbs and islands you have to have, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's pretty much handled.
See, that's what he's, what
I
he
agree
was
with that.
before, it's already handled, why
They're
would you try to
controlled by that.
dictate a lot size? That is
I mean,
discriminating.
I don't know, it's you're doing that already with agricultural, I don't think you're picking what land uses you want on what size property and what zone you want it in. And that's what your zoning ordinance is for, so that could be a way to mitigate doing spot zoning, mitigate putting it as special exceptions. This is an option we could look into.
Where would it, what are residential approved apartments?
R3
R3?
and R4, which, yeah.
Since we don't have R4.
Right, so it's
R3.
just R3. And so your C1, the only residential use it allows is mixed-use residential.
But C2 does allow for apartment.
C2 doesn't allow for any residential uses.
So we're saying
So it'd
with
be R3.
special
So-
exceptions that it would, or
If you
upon
change it-
review.
If
And
you change
that's-
the ordinance to include special, use on review, then that's what, everybody'd have to come to y'all for that.
And that was your recommendation?
That was
When
my
it- in October.
recommendation.
Does it go straight to the BZA or does it go to the city council as well?
No, it'll go to the city council on the end, but you guys have to recommend. I
It
think
won't
that-
be us. it'll be
It won't be
the-
us, it'll be the
Special,
BZA.
special exceptions in Monteagle are only viewed by the BZA.
BZA.
Okay.
And the only
The
thing right
council
now
doesn't have
that
an
is
argument about it.
a special exception right now is adult-oriented establishments in your industrial district, which we just got rid of our only industrial district. So, you don't have very many other things that are special exceptions in C2.
Okay, so our options on the table, if anyone wants to make a motion, are what?
You could, I mean, I think more research should be done. I think it seems like we could have a longer workshop ahead of us. I could bring more options to you. We could talk prior to the meeting and see what you guys would like me to include. I don't know.
That's your recommendation.
The landowner would have to make a request to change it to R.
Right, and you could do that too. I mean, if Dean Lay, who wrote this letter asking for us to look into this, wants to put in an application to rezone his property, you can go against Set D's recommendation against spot zoning and approve it anyway. But it's up to you, what you know.
But just like I said last week, we need to figure out some way to get it spot zone.
I'm not comfortable with spot zoning, but
Somebody's gotta go to jail.
But the only reason I would say to make a motion to do this is because back in October, if you go back and watch the meetings, we discussed this for 2 months. Earl did make the recommendation that we recommend to the council that we amend the ordinance to include upon special review. Is that the what term that you use?
Special exception,
Okay.
yeah.
And so Earl made that recommendation. Somehow that fell
It was
through
never
the
acted on,
cracks.
right?
It wasn't acted upon, but that was a recommendation if you want to go back, because we started researching this in Valley, because we went over that 2 months.
Well, it did not get acted on, it was pulled. It was pulled.
Well, if it was made to the council, I guess
It never went
it's
to
not
the
a city
council.
flag business.
It never went to
It
the
never went to
council.
the planning.
So I would make the
I mean, it went to the
recommendation.
council.
Earl, what would be the term that we would amend the ordinance to? What's the correct language that we would put in the amendment?
Use on review,
Right.
it would be added to that ordinance.
And what ordinance is that, Anya?
I mean,
C2
so
zoning.
I think it's actually special exceptions, not use on review in Monteagle.
Special exceptions,
Yes, yeah.
that's just.
I mean, it means the same thing basically, but this is just the terminology that Monteagle uses.
However you want to write
Whatever.
it up, as long as we understand that's what it means.
So, yeah,
Mhm.
so,
I'm good.
yeah, it's before the BZA.
So that's not business that the planning commission, that goes to the council.
We have to recommend
To
the
the
change
council.
in the ordinance to the council in order for it to pass.
Uh-huh.
I mean, in
Yes,
order for it
yeah.
to get bumped up,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
two readings,
and then they do their thing.
and also a public hearing on that license.
Are these parcels, are these the ones that are right next to the R2 zone? Do you know? I can't remember.
Will they back up to?
They're next
Cliff
to,
House?
yeah, that's.
I know there are, but is it all the parcels between
Yeah.
Cliff
it's all
Tops
commercial.
and the R2 zone? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's all, It's all C.
Mr. Lay may know that.
I'm sure Mr. Lay does know that. All of them are C2, aren't they?
Yes.
All right, we'll let the city duke it out. Is that the recommendation?
I make a motion.
Okay, what is your or what's your motion?
I'll make a motion that we amend the ordinance, whichever one it is.
Well, you make a motion to recommend to town council.
Well,
or
I
town-
kind
city
of do
council.
that at the very end of the motion, if
Okay,
that's all right.
yeah.
Ow.
Sorry, in the middle of
Yeah, I
it.
expect that.
Okay, go ahead. I make a motion that we amend ordinance what?
It's a zoning ordinance to make,
No, but what number?
It's,
I have it up, hold on. Section 501, schedule of permitted uses.
Okay. I make a motion that we recommend to the town council a change in the ordinance 501 special uses to include the phrase permitted use on review or ordinance special exceptions, whichever is the proper wording according to the town of
Okay.
Monteagle.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. I need a second.
Second.
All right, got Peter. Any discussion? Okay, I'm gonna do a roll call. Richard Black.
Opposed.
Janet Miller-Schmidt.
Agreed?
Ed Provo.
Yes.
Peter Beasley.
Yes.
Marilyn Rodman.
Yes.
Ida Michelle Russell.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, but yes. All right, ayes have it.
So
Dean,
can I
congratulations.
raise a
It's going
discussion
to city
on
council
that
now.
After it's over?
Do it?
A discussion.
No, it goes to city council to pass for the special exemption.
I don't go to BZA?
Not
No,
yet.
the ordinance was never changed like it was supposed to be in October, which I told you, we let it fall through the cracks. I called Sam, he said, however, we have to follow the process and make sure the ordinance is changed correctly, like Earl said. The council will do the first reading, a special, public hearing, and then the second reading, and it's approved.
Do I now need to submit a letter to the city requesting that consideration, or what's?
No.
I mean, it hasn't, the zoning ordinance hasn't been updated yet, so you can't make any, there's no action you can take
They
yet.
passed one on a special exception on second reading.
Wait, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're asking. What, are you asking if you can go ahead and, put in an application for your parcels of land to be rezoned?
But what I
Or
want
not
to know is the
rezoned,
city
but-
need official notification from the property owner, that they want to initiate that process.
To build apartments, does it go to you? Would it go to you and it'll be submitted to the BZA?
Yeah, once the zoning ordinance is updated, yes. So in
When
like,
will that be?
whenever they have the hearings, the public
months.
hearings.
2 readings, we'll have to have 2 readings and a public hearing.
So probably in the next 60 days.
Yes, it should be. I mean, there's no reason it couldn't be, do that, Deb.
Unless they vote it down, they
Yeah,
have that
I understand
option.
that. There's things I need to be doing
Yeah.
from engineering reports and architects and all this stuff, but I don't want to commit on that while this is hanging
Well,
around.
no, you're right, Dean, it can happen within the next meeting. What is our next meeting, July? This is July, right? And then between July and August, it can happen, okay? It can, and if you request, we can have a special meeting as long as we have a public hearing. If it passes, we can get it done by the
Well,
end
for
of
the record,
August.
to me, if you don't do that in 2 or 3 years, there's a body up here doing business and they say, well, why did they change that ordinance and nothing was ever done? Or
Well, that's the reason we're fixing this now. We erred in that, but we are fixing it now.
Okay. I won't talk. All right, that's done. So now we go to the city council. We've moved it on, Dean. All right. Next, let's move on to 740 West Main Street site plan. Where are we at with that, Anya?
I haven't gotten anything submitted, so I recommend denial until they resubmit a site plan.
Gotcha. So we need to vote to deny it in order for them to submit the whole thing again?
That's my recommendation, yes.
Okay. All right, I need a motion.
Motion for denial.
Motion to deny is heard. I need a second.
Second.
All right, second by Richard. All those in favor?
Uh,
All those opposed? All right. And then just resubmit the whole with the landscaping, with everything, well, everything that is corrected, right? Okay. New business, discussing lowering acreage requirement for agricultural land use into C2. Back to C2, we have a citizen that would like to, he has 36 acres. Our requirement to have animals is 50 acres. We need to discuss, is there a potential to lower the amount of acreage we will allow animals in C2 district?
I'm opposed to it.
Okay,
Me too.
these guys don't want animals, gotcha, next.
There's still one animals beside in that small area, so.
I'm opposed.
All right, and is there any other option that is allowed him to do what he wants to do?
Not at this point.
Okay, great.
Just I mean, he could have his animals on, like we discussed, outside of city limits, where his property is in Marion County.
All right, Earl, any suggestions on that? You've been talking to Dale?
Change the game.
I just don't think we wanna touch it, do we?
When you go to the camp.
Well, yeah, and there's a petting zoo across the street, so, but I hear you. Discussing urban growth boundary. There are potential of people not wanting to be in it and the potential of people wanting to be in it, and do we know what it is?
I don't know the exact process yet. I will say, I do believe it's out of the planning commission's jurisdiction to decide if people are gonna be.
Anya, just any math would be a huge help. in
Right, but
understanding
that's
that.
even outside my scope of work. That would have to be a huge commission. We'd have to, I feel like we'd have put together a different commission for
It's a
it.
special board
Right.
that has to be put together from every mayor in Grundy County.
Gotcha, so
And
people
Marion and
wanting to
Franklin.
protect their area near Monteagle, we're just not gonna, just not.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard from any of these conversations. I haven't heard about anything. I don't know exactly what they're wanting to do. I mean, right now, if they're outside of city limits but within the urban growth boundary, they don't have zoning, they just have to follow subdivision regulations, and that's what y'all have jurisdiction on.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Pilot expansion plan, Jeff Johnson. Which one's Jeff? Hey, Jeff. Come on up here and chit chat with us.
Okay. I've got a larger set of the landscaping plan, if that would be helpful.
There might be.
That'd be helpful, okay.
He's got a couple, so do one per page.
Sounds good.
Go ahead.
Copy as well.
Section of the building is on the left.
I know, I hear you.
Sorry.
That's okay. All right, now
So when we drive in.
explain the
we're
alternate
doing
plan that
that
we're gonna be doing.
Here, and this is gonna be.
That's
here.
kind of dead area anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I believe
This is the interstate route.
okay, so
This is gonna take you.
I think the ordinance requires the landscaping plan from the front of the boundary up to the building. for that square footage to be counted. So we've done that. The number's 113,000 and some odd square feet. And then for the shade trees, it's that number divided by 3,500, which is 32 and some change. We rounded to 33. We have 22 now, so we're wanting to add those 11 trees. However, some of them, instead of putting them all in this area, we put them throughout. So the darker shades are the ones that we're proposing to add to get us closer in with the ordinance that you have being 60 feet. That's what the circles there are showing you. So we have some gap in that, but I feel like we can close those gaps. We've got a small gap right here. Obviously, be a struggle, in front of the building to be able to do those things.
Is that good for your sidewalk?
Yes.
Okay, you're going to keep that sidewalk and lighting there?
Yes, yeah.
What caliber are these trees upon?
I'm sorry?
What caliber design?
It's just one.
Yeah, they're, most of the ones along the front are the eastern redbuds, so they're the class 2. Yeah. Really pretty.
So how many trees are you adding to the site for 1,300 foot?
Well, we can have is, to get us to meet like what we think the intent of your code is, it's
Right.
11.
11, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Questions over here, team?
None here.
No.
Okay.
Is this,
Motion to
Yeah.
approve.
Set D staff looked at it and it looks good and,
It looks good?
right,
All
right.
right.
So you have to approve, the site plan, with the alternative landscaping plan. So based on your zoning ordinance, I don't think we've dealt with alternative landscaping plans in the recent, times. But, so recognizing the existing site conditions or the nature of the proposed development may make it impractical or impossible to comply with the strict landscaping provisions of this ordinance. In such cases, the planning commission is authorized to approve an alternate landscaping plan. So you'll just have to approve the site plan with that.
For example, right here as well, there's a power line that goes across that, which makes it a little difficult to put something to fill in this space right here.
You just move it.
right, because they've just cut the tree down.
Yeah, or cut it.
Motion to approve?
Okay, I've got a motion to approve the site plan with the alternative landscaping plan. Is that what we're, yeah. I've got a initial, I need a second.
Second.
I'm gonna give it to Peter. Peter, you got a second, any discussion?
Yes, of course, we have nothing to do with this because this is corporate pilot, but since my husband is the general manager there, I'm gonna recuse myself from voting on this, for the record.
Sure.
Okay,
That's right.
thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, awesome, congratulations, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
I appreciate y'all going the extra step
Thank you.
and the vision, we're excited. What kind of food are we talking about here?
Hey, they got,
So obviously, we're gonna redo the Wendy's, right, Jeff?
Yeah, redo the Wendy's, and there'll be some pizza, wings,
Nice,
some things that aren't there right now, so hopefully be nice.
good, thank you.
honey, you could dinner, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, just ask Ron.
That's right, that's right, I think meet and greet, and it's actually quite good.
Outstanding, all right, thank you.
Have a
fellas.
great night, guys.
Thank you.
All right, preliminary plat for Wren's Nest Hideaway, Tom Kale.
That was
That was right, we took
Right.
it off. All right, sorry. Got that. Hearing of persons having business before the commission. Anybody have any? Dean, come on up.
The other night at the city meeting, I brought up about the distilleries. And I guess the mayor needs to update you guys on what that was.
What we did find out, there is a new definition, I spoke briefly
Yeah,
about that.
we talked about this. I'm trying to pull up our-
And I also talked to MTS, and they were getting us something back, that distilleries can now stand alone, but there has to be X amount of days. Of course, that was when you were at the meeting, and then should not talk about it. So that ordinance will need to be amended, because the way it now reads is that you have to have a restaurant, and the distillery cannot stand alone, but it can happen. We just got to amend that and correct it. They're working on those corrections that they're gonna make to the, planning commission, that.
In regard to this specific.
Well, that is one in specifically that will have to be changed. Anya knows.
MTAS is gonna make,
Well, they also said they could now stand alone with X amount of food, but they did not send it to us, because I talked to you and I talked to several different people, but I have not got it in writing yet, so.
But how do they stand alone if they have food? I mean,
Well, what I'm saying, distilleries are now distilleries, but they'll have snacks or something themselves. I don't know what the percentage is.
Excuse me, I don't even know what we're talking about.
Yeah, we have no
Well,
idea.
this was at the planning commission meeting, so he's here talking, what it was. So go ahead and tell
It
them
was
about
at
the
city
ordinance
council.
that is messed
It was
up.
at city council meeting.
Yeah, this was at the city council
Yeah.
meeting that we
Your
found in
your
there.
current regulations on distillery, says, well, on your little tag sheet, it says where they're allowed, it says they're allowed in, C1, C2, and C3. And then, that's on page, 32, I guess. Yes, breweries and distilleries are allowed in C1, C2, and C3. And then when you go, to page 36, 510, breweries and distilleries, it says, breweries and distilleries shall comply with all applicable general provisions of this zoning ordinance and the requirements of this section. Where there's a conflict with another regulation or dimensional requirement, the standard specified in this section shall control. A, within the C3 district, brewing and distillery operations shall only be approved if they are collocated, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, within a restaurant or on the same lot. Otherwise, no standalone breweries or distilleries shall be permitted within the C3 district. Now, some the other night said, well, you can still do it in C1, C2. Well, I think it was just an oversight on 510 here, not mentioned in C1 or C2, or on page 31, chapter 5, on land use schedule regulations, where it says that it is allowed in C1, C2, and C3, but I think what it was referring to there, it would still have to be in a restaurant.
wait, our staff's interpretation of it was that Monteagle permits standalone breweries and distillery operations in C1 and C2, not in C3. We think that this may be because C3 is usually closer to highway and the interstate, and it doesn't make sense to have breweries as stops for cars and trucks. So that's why we wouldn't allow it as a
Does that make sense
standalone.
to have one in a C3 without a restaurant, you're saying?
No, they're not permitted as a standalone in
Right,
C3.
yeah.
Yeah.
Without, unless it has a restaurant.
Right, it has to be a
And
part
what's
of
the
it,
logic for that?
because it doesn't make sense to have it as a stop for a car or truck. Like,
Just to get a liquor.
just to get drinks.
Well, distilleries are the ones that I've visited and looked at, and the people I've talked to, people don't come there to drink. They come there, most of the time, there's you sample the samples, and they have the
Tours.
yeah, they have the tour, and you can buy the bottled stuff, and but you also have some of them have jams and jellies, and some of them have T-shirts, and some of them say they make more money on incidentals than they do actually what they're brewing, or not brewing, what they're distilling. And so it's not a place for people to come and sit and get drunk. I mean,
So I need to ask you, what kind of distillery are we talking about? Are we talking about liquor, or are we talking about one of those new beer ones?
well, I've been contacted on the property, what's the name of that street?
Monteagle.
Development, or Monteagle Square?
Monteagle Square.
Monteagle Square.
Yeah. That's what it is.
And about, preferably, they think, a distillery, perhaps a brewery. And they wanted to know about the property, and I said, well, I'll have to research. I think it's allowed, but I'll have to research to see that you could, if you bought the land, that you could do that. And there's a lot of distilleries now that do not have food served, but most breweries that I've seen and researched do have food. And I don't know why that is. Well, I do, I guess. I don't know why. But anyway, I can't, in good faith, tell these people that you can buy this land and put a freestanding distillery on.
Is it C3?
No.
No, that's in the C2. But I think there's some confusion because of the way this is, and it needs to be clarified.
What's the confusion? I'm not sure if I understand, because I thought that if you're saying the property they're looking at is in a C2,
Yes.
then they are permitted to have a standalone
The standalone.
distillery or brewery.
And I think, is the city willing to give documentation to property owner or prospective?
Yeah.
It currently it says that, because that's what it
But what I'm
says.
saying is the city, are you as the mayor willing to sign the letter stating that a standalone distillery and/or brewery is allowed at that location?
If you wanna,
Once we get the documentation, if it's it meets the ordinance, correct? Is that
it's in the
all right?
ordinance, but if
If
you're
you're
welcome,
saying we don't have to worry about it in C1, C2.
you
only
could have a
if it's C3.
standalone
Right.
brewery distillery
Yeah.
in those
Yeah.
districts, yeah.
So if I wanted to go out on this end of town and put up a distillery, I can't do that, but I can go down here on this end of town and put one up.
But yes, if that says it meets current zoning standards, we can provide that with you, because I did call the attorney, and yes,
Yeah.
it was like $50 to call in, but still it was worth every $50 to do it. But he did, no, he didn't charge, we didn't talk that long, I told myself. But is that he said they can now stand alone in the state of Tennessee, but there is a ratio that you have to have, I don't know if it's nuts, whatever, there has to be some type of snacks or whatever. But
So
we
there's
will
a
have to
state
get that.
regulation.
That's not our
Yeah.
regulation.
No, well, the
The
liquor
only
of the drink,
one-
when it was passed, the ABC regulated that
Right.
the town of Monteagle had to have, for liquor of the drink, had to have food sales, and it had to be a percentage,
50%.
yeah, whatever it was there.
And
And
they
that may
still
carry
do that.
over.
But if it's spirits.
And I don't think that's a problem at a
Yeah.
distillery, because again, they don't sell, the ones that I've visited, I mean, obviously they sell it, but there's no place to buy food.
You can't just sit and drink, but you can sample, but they usually have, but that can be worked out. Yes, that can be done according to the ordinance, what is legal. We can provide you with a letter to say
Okay.
that.
I don't want to misrepresent to somebody and sell a piece of land to them, and me telling them they can use that for that use, and then later on, we misunderstood, or there was.
Well, no, there's a misunderstanding. It's
Right.
pretty, it's
And if
clear,
you wanted to
isn't it?
have it I mean, another option is you could email me and I could, email you back, so you could have it on paper.
So I can just identify map and parcel of the land.
Right, you can
and-
send me the
and Identify
parcel,
the property and ask,
is this permitted on this property, and I
is
could send back
504,
my
whatever it
interpretation.
is.
Yeah.
Okay,
You
thank you.
can get that.
Yeah, okay.
I would love one.
Dean,
I think that's
before you get
fantastic.
away, I've got this business permit for this new business you're talking about doing.
Yes,
I'd like for you to explain to the planning commission what this is gonna be.
okay. Something totally different from
Oh, great.
distillery
A
and
new one?
brewery,
Okay,
yeah.
great.
The old Key Stop truck stop, I bought that property, and the back part, back there, I'm gonna do the mobile storage units. I'm not gonna build, there's currently a structure there, there's about a 4,000 square foot building that's there, it's been there since 1977, when Key Stop came up here. And just for a quick history lesson on that, Lester Key came to Monteagle in about 1977, bought that property, tore down the old, Dobbins, I guess, was there then, or the Newsoms had a restaurant. But anyway, they built the motel, they built a new restaurant, they built fuel islands, and they built the shop building. And so that's what I refer to as Key Stop, truck stop. But I bought, the 6 acres, of course, obviously not the motel, and obviously not the restaurant side, but the remaining property. It's in 2 tracks. I want to take, and do the Connex storage on site, or if you wanted one delivered to your business, you see a lot of them at businesses for whatever reasons. But anyway, and they actually just sell them outright. I don't feel like I need a site plan because I'm not gonna build anything. Now, I've gotta be fenced, and there's and I want a fence, I want to have security, but anyway, I don't feel like I would be required to do a site plan because I'm not building anything. And so I guess you guys, or you, or somebody needs to
Is there an office, or like where
No,
are you
I'm gonna do
conducting?
just like Copper Safe out here, what I call a bagging station there. They've got storage there, there's no office, everything's done on the internet. My office is down here at West College, but there's no reason to have an office.
Okay. I don't know, I can't answer you right now, I'd have to,
Okay, so how does
Look at-
Copper Safe do theirs out here?
I mean, I don't know, it was before my time, I don't know if they turned in
Well,
a
they
site
did
plan or
site
not.
plan.
I mean,
Across the road here, if you
It's
look
good to
out the window, look over there, there's about 10 or 12 little storage things over there. Did you guys approve a site plan for those people?
They're not being used, they're just sitting there. I mean, that's just,
Well,
they
I
just
mean, just
don't
sit
have,
down there.
well, and that's what I'm saying, if you just wanna set them.
Well, I was gonna sit mine there, so
No, I mean, he's just wanting to put a fence, you know, talk around the property is what he wants, so.
I don't know where truck stop was. Is it on the other side of the interstate?
yes, go across the bridge,
Gotcha.
and then you got the motel, and then you got in the very back next to the fence, there's a duplex back there. David Oliver owns that. And then originally in the front there was about probably a 3/4 acre lot that had a restaurant on it. And then there's just a big gravel parking lot, the trucks park
I
in.
know where you're talking about.
Okay, across from what I call Jerry Anderson's, which is not Jerry Anderson's dead, it's not his now, but Jerry Anderson built about a 3-bay truck shop.
Wasn't a CV shop too in there?
CB shop is, yeah, a
I
key
know where you're
shop,
talking
yeah.
about.
Okay.
So, and I can't imagine mine looking any worse than Jerry Anderson's. But y'all, I would encourage y'all to drive out there and look at it and see what y'all think about it. And I'll just, copy what the Jerry Anderson concept is.
Well,
So
no, I
no
mean,
site improvements at all?
well, I mean, it's.
Not right now, now, I've got
Isn't there
a
an issue
person
with the
that
zoning?
wants to do a little CD
That is
shop.
my next question.
And if I do that, I'll come before you guys with a site plan showing, where the path, or where the building's going, the setbacks and everything that the site plan requires. But that's probably gonna be spring or summer next year.
Earl, I thought if it didn't change the footprint, you didn't have to get a site plan.
Well, that's on an existing structure.
But he doesn't have a structure, he's
Right.
just gonna have a fence,
Yeah.
like
Well,
other fence.
well, there's two things I want to, that's the reason I'm glad you're here tonight. There's two things that I want to make clear. Number one is site plan going to be required, and number two is C3 zoned for this use. That's why I'm glad everybody's here.
It's C3?
Used to it was, but you guys changed all that. Used to the C3 out here was the catch-all, and then when part of it was changed, they went down to 134 and made part of that C3, and your verbiage says interchange or something.
Interchange district, yeah.
So,
So it's
but there's the
C3.
zoning map, I don't know.
Okay.
which, according to the zoning ordinance, self-storage facilities are only allowed in C2.
Okay, that makes sense.
So they're you're going to rent them out?
Well, I was, but I made us sell them now. I had them in C2 down here. I can move them back down there. I'll just move them back down here, and we won't have to worry about it. I've got 15, or, no, I've got 10 coming,
So this is C2 down here in the middle of town,
Yeah.
in the part of the corridor.
Yeah, where
And
I
you
moved
can't
one the
put
other
a-
day.
Yeah, he moved them because.
Yeah, but I'll just bring them all back down there, so y'all don't have to worry about it.
Wait just a minute, we didn't say you couldn't, I mean, come on, if you
Well,
wanna
she
work.
just got through saying it, couldn't
What's the zoning?
I mean, it
That don't make any sense.
No, it
man.
doesn't, but that's
Well,
okay.
it won't.
I can stack them in down there. Thank you.
What's the zoning?
The zoning, what his part?
The land-
C3.
It's C3, so the one, Dean's parcel in question is a C3, and putting storage units on there and fencing it for just sell, right?
Yeah, he's selling.
So there's two
They
questions.
start getting a building permit, why would he?
Wait,
do
there's-
a site plan?
Okay, but there's two questions. It's the site plan, and I need to look into that. I mean, it's, when I'm reading the zoning ordinance right now, he isn't building something. So it's
Right.
possible that he won't need a site plan. But the other question that we're discussing is zoning, because self-storage facilities are only permitted in C2. So I mean, it's up to you if that makes sense to
Well, you're not renting,
Monteagle
you're
land
selling
use.
them, aren't you?
I was gonna sell them, rent them, rent them to you for your place of business and deliver it like they
Right,
do.
so they're not gonna be used on the site?
Yes, I had originally planned that, but I can just go back to my original plan.
What's his original plan?
Was move them downtown,
You move them downtown.
or to C2, which makes no sense, so that's something else. We know there's a lot of things that need to be fixed. We told you that. We're trying to fix it.
But I can't wait on you guys.
How long, when are you getting these things?
I was supposed to have 10 here on the 15th, by the 15th. I've got 3 coming back. Well, actually, one's out there now, so I'm in violation on that, so I'll do that tomorrow. And, Lord knows we don't want to bring that in pound up with comments.
Or rubble.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't mean to open up this can of worms.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
something
you know.
that I'd have to deal with one way or the other.
You're gonna have to, exactly. Anya is doing some research on it. Well, hey, we've kicked the C2 down the road, and we finally got it almost resolved.
Since October.
Yeah, it was since October.
Well, that's the reason, that's what it said we were gonna fix it, so we said it was since October. But as far as that really makes no sense if you can have storage units stacked up in the middle of town
I
where the
agree.
corridor's gonna be, and you can't have a storage unit you're renting down there.
No, I
Sorry,
agree.
there's something wrong with that picture.
Right.
Oh, okay,
And I do know, if he's not building anything, we talked about this, to put up a fence, it has to be the right materials, but if you
Yes,
put
yeah,
up
I
a
have a
fence,
problem with
you
the
know,
fence.
because he's not building anything.
It'll probably be in excess of what your minimum requirement.
Yeah, I mean, it has to fall within one of the guidelines of the fencing, that one's answered for you.
So we're giving that research to Anya.
I don't
He's gonna
need it.
move them anyhow.
I know.
I mean, so, I mean, his problem now is not just the site plan, the problem now is the zoning. And like you're saying, I agree, it doesn't really make sense to allow self-storage facilities in C2, but allow it in, or, yeah, not allow it in C3.
So, I mean, we can start the process next month. I mean, you wanna do some research on it
I can
first?
do some research on it.
We can't do it, this is hearing, we can't do any action right now.
You're
We can't do
renting them,
any
aren't
action
you,
right
Dan?
now.
I mean, you're gonna be renting.
Yeah, rent them, sell them,
Okay.
yeah.
And
But
you
they're
bring them
not
on
sitting there,
site.
they're going to decline, right?
No, some of them will be on site, some of them may be, at a business place. You see them at a lot of businesses periodically, and you have an ordinance that says they can't be but so many days or something. And then there's some people that want to buy one and put behind, their barn or what for
Right.
security. I mean, they're good containers, they're secure, it doesn't make much sense to buy a little portable building that somebody can break into or will fall in 5 years. These things will, they can haul marbles from China, and get here. And before, the problem has been supply chain. They've all been sitting out in the ocean floating around. But now they're making it port, and so they're getting back readily available. They've been waiting.
So these are cargo containers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People Airbnb them.
They're
for
also,
research.
they buy them and make tiny houses
Yeah.
out
Oh,
of them.
yeah.
I mean,
Multiple
people build
using, they stack them up 2-story. And they were out there on that end of town, on the other piece of property I had, that I bought from Gene Nixon. There was, a couple of years ago, they were stacked up about 4 high out there. There's probably 50 of them out there.
And I don't think that's a good look either. I mean,
I'm just gonna say that, too.
Well,
Dave, quit.
well, but you can do what
I ain't got nothing to get it any higher.
Okay, we can't take any action, this is hearing.
I know,
I know you don't, I know, but we're gonna give it to Anya, because she loves this stuff. All right, anybody else wanna talk? Oh, come on. Anyone got some spicy something?
Well, here's, Anya, can you check about how could we amend that, because that makes no sense.
I mean, yeah, so typically every time I've gotten a request to amend the zoning ordinance, I've done like a full staff review, it's been a process with an application. I'm gonna ask if, when things like this come up, next time, can the PC just, I mean, y'all can do whatever you want, obviously, but is it best practice just to go ahead and make a recommendation to city council to permit self-storage facilities in C3 and take away the use in C2.
Well, because C2's in the corridor, right?
Right.
C3's not. I mean,
Right.
it's in the extended.
Yeah, but
Right.
C3s are exits, and they're, I mean, we should be wanting to beautify those.
The exits, but I think it's more of a priority to beautify the central business district, and where do, I mean, self-storage facilities
Well, I'll be
make sense.
grandfathered in down here.
I don't know, you're right, Iva, too, so,
I know, but I
I
mean,
see your point.
and I see y'all's point. I mean, I think we're just trying to do the best we can.
Well, we're gonna have storage units in the middle of town.
The way it is right
That's
now.
what Dean just said, the way it looks
What?
right now. So, because.
Well, I mean, that discussion will go on at our workshop next week, and we'll have a solution that y'all can decide on, so. Are you sure, anyone else? Greg, are you sure? You want anything? Leslie, got anything, man? Okay. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, Richard. Second.
Hey, Dean,
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I think Dean can stack his
Workshop, that'd be a talking.
See, perfect. See, that would be
Well, no,
perfect.
that'd
Let's
be-
let.
Yeah, Robin was
Okay.
big in that
My
area.
recommendation.